All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, if the Philadelphia Eagles want to win their second Super Bowl championship in franchise history, then their formula for success on offense must remain what it has been for this season, and that is very simple. Give the football to running back Saquon Barkley and get the hell out of his way. The regular season saw Barkley become just the ninth player in NFL history to rush for at least 2,000 yards and a campaign, and he was just 101 yards away from setting a new NFL single season rushing mark. And in the Eagles' first two games of this postseason, it's been all about continuing to give Barkley the football. He had 119 yards on 25 carries last Sunday in the wild card round win over the Green Bay Packers. And after the Eagles started today's divisional round game against the Los Angeles Rams by using Saquon as a decoy on offense, the Pro Bowl back began to heat up in the snow at the link. And because of that, Philly is set to host the NFC Championship game for the second time in the last 3 years. Barkley got the Rams for 255 yards on the ground 2 months ago out at SoFi. And then he got them for 205 more today, which included the game clinching 78-yard touchdown run in the fourth, which is on top of a 62-yard touchdown run that he had in the first quarter. Now, yes, the Eagles are loaded with talent at all the skill positions on offense. But their key to a Lombardi trophy is going to be the legs of Saquon Barkley. Saquon, and I talked about this once he signed with the Eagles. I talked about it more after his first game of the season when he showed up big in Brazil against the Packers. Saquon gives Philadelphia the home run hitter at the running back position that they didn't have when they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago and lost to the Chiefs. Okay, now, yes, and I've said this before and I'll continue to say it. Philly has talent at the skill positions. We know about it. We know about quarterback Jalen Hurts. We know about wide receivers Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. But they got to keep riding the legs of Saquon if they want to go out there and win it all. This season, Philadelphia has only lost one game when Barkley went for more than 100 yards on the ground, and it was against their opponent for next Sunday in the NFC Championship game. That's the Washington Commanders. And of course, we remember that was also the game where quarterback Jalen Hurts went out with a concussion. And in two games against the Commanders this season, Barkley hasn't been a slouch either. He has 296 yards on the ground. I'll tell you like this. Philly is in a good spot right now. Crimsdad, what's going on? Thoughts on the snow changing the outcome? And I'm very happy that you brought that up because I love it. Because at the end of the day, it's football. It's January. And this is where the term home field advantage comes in. Okay. Because if this was the home for a 75 or 80-degree weather team, this, that, and the third, people will be saying, well, that's an advantage. This is what it's all about. In the Northeast and the Midwest, the elements come into play. And I've talked about this before on different podcasts. You look at Minnesota, just switching gears real quick, the Vikings. To me, they haven't been the same team since they went indoors. Okay. And, Detroit, yeah, they've gotten to the playoffs the last couple of years, but how many teams would be willing to go to Michigan this time of the year and play outdoors? And I know that the Cleveland Browns ownership wants to put their team indoors as well. Listen, it's a game changer. It's cold weather football. This is what it's all about. I think back with the New York Giants, especially under Bill Parcells, when they were consistently going to the postseason. The Meadowlands was a tremendous home field advantage for them late in the season with the cold, the wind, and the rain in East Rutherford, New Jersey. So I have absolutely no problem with it. That's what home field advantage is all about. You look at hockey and you look at basketball. Yeah, you can have home court. Yeah, you can have home ice advantage. But you don't have to worry about any outdoor elements. It's all about fans, things of that nature. But I truly think home field advantage really comes into play for both baseball and football, and when it comes to the postseason, because you think about it, all fields, dimension wise, are not the same in baseball. And then, you go to the cold weather teams, cities in the Midwest and the Northeast, the elements do become a factor in the fall in baseball, because why, the ball is not going to travel as far in the colder air. And I think the elements were a factor today in this contest. But at the end of the day, it's home field advantage. I have zero problem with it. Let those guys go out there and play. And you know what? At the end of the day, we'll see who the best team is. I'm not a fan of all of the indoor games, the warm weather games this time of the year in football. It's football. This is what it's all about, getting out there in the elements. And speaking of football, you look at the college football playoff in round number one, where we had on campus games. The weather was definitely a factor with Ohio State, Tennessee, and Columbus. Same thing for SMU, Penn State, when the Mustangs went to Happy Valley. And the same, of course, both teams are from the great state of Indiana, but you got Notre Dame and Indiana getting it on at South Bend. So to answer your point, Crim's dad, I got zero problem with it whatsoever. But you look at Saquon Barkley, and I know that there were some people, because first off, there were people right off the jump who were critical of Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni for a lot of different reasons. But, he took a lot of flack for sitting Saquon down in week 18 against the New York Giants. Yeah, it was clearly a meaningless game for some people, because the Eagles had already clinched uh, the second seed. They could not get the top seed. But I'll tell you like this, and I said it then, for anybody who was upset for the Eagles sitting down Saquon for that game, what would have happened if Saquon had gotten hurt going for the record? What would have happened if Saquon just wasn't as fresh, coming into the playoffs, simply going for that record? Now you sat Saquon Barkley down. Okay. He had a week of rest. And you know what? We're seeing, the fruits of that labor, if you will. I know some people said, well, the Eagles better go out there and win the Super Bowl now that they sat Saquon Barkley down. Guess what? They're 60 football minutes away from getting to said Super Bowl and still having an opportunity to claim a Lombardi trophy. I said it then and I will say it now. I have zero problem with the Eagles sitting Saquon Barkley down, uh, you know, and not allowing him to have that opportunity to go out there and break Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record. Saquon has been on bad teams for so many years with the New York Football Giants. He had one shot at the postseason with them a couple of years ago, won a game, and then they lost in round number two to these Eagles at the link. Nonetheless, he's been in the league long enough. This guy, sees the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, as far as attempting to win a championship. And if Saquon is going to continue to run like he's been running, and if the Eagles' offensive line is going to continue to open up holes for him, and this kid continues to hit his head on the goalpost running for touchdowns, guess what? The Eagles are going to be very formidable, and I really like their chances to get to the Super Bowl. So the question is, will the legs of Barkley be able to propel the Eagles to the title? Well, they're right in the thick of things. And like I said before, he's only had one game this season where he's rushed for at least 100 yards and they didn't win that game. That was a rematch against the Commanders. Of course, like I said before, Jalen Hurts went out of that game with a concussion. And of course, if Devonta Smith makes that catch late, we're probably not having this situation. But I think next Sunday is going to be fun. Philadelphia opened up as a 5.5 point favorite over their NFC East rival next Sunday in the Washington Commanders. It is the trilogy in this season. And of course, when you face the team twice and now the third time, there's really not anything that you can show them what they as far as what they have not seen before. But the bottom line is, we know that the Eagles are going to run the football. We know that the Eagles have to run the football. And I'll tell you like this: yes, the Commanders are going to go into that game knowing we got to try to find a way to slow down Saquon Barkley. But guess what? The Eagles know that as well. But the bottom line is, I'm not sure if the Commanders are going to be able to do it. Remember, this was a Washington team. Like I said, they've already given up nearly 300 yards on the ground in 2 games against Saquon Barkley this season. As a team, the Commanders gave up more than 500 yards last night in their victory over the Detroit Lions. Yes, it's all about surviving and advancing this time of the year in the postseason. But I guarantee you, this Eagles offense, and more importantly, Eagles offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, is definitely licking his chops at the opportunities. It's one of those where what saved Washington last night, clearly in their win over Detroit, were the turnovers because the Lions moved the football up and down the field. And I guarantee you, Philly's going to try to do the same. Philly has done the same in their first 2 meetings with Washington this season. So it's buckle up your chin straps, excuse me. And if Washington tries to go all in and attempting to slow down Barkley, guess what? Those 2 guys on the outside, AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, could have a field day. But nonetheless, in the snow or indoors, uh, on the turf at SoFi out in Inglewood, this Rams defense didn't have an answer for Saquon Barkley this season in their 2 games. And honestly, there's a lot of defenses that will fall into that category as they simply have not been able to slow this man down. It's funny because some people thought when Saquon was still with the Giants that, you know what, he was finished. And it wasn't that he was finished, it was plain and simple. He was playing on a bad team. And he didn't have the offensive line like he does now, didn't have the quarterback play like he does now, didn't have the talent around him like he does now, didn't have the organization like he does now. And it just shows you plain and simple. Great players need to be in great organizations. But when great players are in bad organizations and they try to propel and lift everybody up around them, it ain't going to be the same. Saquon did all that he could with the New York Football Giants, and there's no disrespect to them. And like I said before, the Giants, they were 4-13 this season without Saquon. If Saquon was there and they paid him, okay, they're 6-11, 7-10. So we're really right back in the same boat if you're the Giants. But nonetheless, Saquon is making the most of his opportunity with the Eagles. They keep feeding him the ball, and they're going to have to keep feeding him the ball. I don't see a defense in that's left in this tournament that's going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley, in my opinion. Okay, and if the Eagles just keep all the outside noise out, give this young man the ball, I really do like their chances to win it all in a couple of weeks in New Orleans. But folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. Crim's Dad, as always, I appreciate you chiming in. I know most of you, probably got the second game on right now. I would definitely want to go back and get into it with Baltimore and Buffalo, and I'm going to have a lot to talk about that game either tonight or tomorrow. So definitely stay tuned to this channel. Also, if you like or liked what you have heard on this podcast, please feel free to hit that like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Like I always say, the support is immensely appreciated. Also, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I'm signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.